Good evening and welcome to Enemy Within. It's Friday the 31st of July and tonight I'm joined by Unique Lee. Good evening, Lee.
Hiya, matey.
How you doing?
Pretty good, mate. This is it's quite cosy, this, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's lovely. Just the two of us tonight. No Tom, he's busy, he's away at a wedding tonight, so when you're listening back on the podcast, hiya Tom. And you don't even need your North East phrase book. He'll kill me for that. So you go out at 11 o'clock at night then, Lee. So there might be one or two people listening who haven't heard you before. So in case there is, perhaps you could just tell us a little bit about what you do.
Oh, what I do. Unlike yourself, we try and delve into some of the more unorthodox subject matter that people don't generally discuss in the mainstream or what I call the lamestream media. Some may call it unorthodox, some may call it dark, negative, but my little dark side of the room show of a Friday at 11 p.m. is generally just for going into more of the darker subject matter that people don't generally delve into.
Uh-huh.
Whether it helps anyone is a different ballgame.
Yeah, well, it's always good to look at things from different perspectives because when you look at things from a different angle, you can often see things that you've never seen before.
It can, but it can open up your eyes to things that you don't particularly want to look at either. And I'm not saying the show forces people to look at these things in that way. I would just say to people, the reason why I do my shows is to look at things objectively and start looking at things from a different perspective based on how you previously thought. Because you may have something wrong, which will, along the line, it will give you a distorted viewpoint of what you think you see. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
For example, for example, it's like we discussed on the chat the other day, that most of these events that we're seeing now on, whether it be horse racing events, tennis, ladies' days, whatever, we're seeing all of it getting hijacked pretty much by, bonehead celebrity people and narcissists. And I don't know why the public is entertaining it so much. That's the big one for me.
Yeah.
Every day you're seeing the same thing on the news, that it's just cleavage, the sexual nature of the exploitation, I would say, of everything that we are in society. Everything that's for sale now, you can just put a naked body in front of a camera and it's somehow going to sell you. It's going to make you a successful entrepreneur. When did we get to that stage?
Well, I worked as a salesman many years ago, and one of the things I learned on the indoctrination courses that I went on was that sex sells everything.
But why is it permeating to the level now that it is, where people are very accepting of it all, to the degree that it's normal, it's normalised?
Well, I suppose for that you need to start looking into the Frankfurt School, possibly. Mm-hmm. Edward Bernays, all that kind of Tavistock.
Yeah, that's kind of stuff that is advanced. Once you've been on the road for a few years and you start looking into the Tavistock stuff, that takes you into a whole new world and all. The Beatles and all this. That's crazy.
Kaz has just posted in the chat room, Gap was selling baby grows with explicit slogans 2 years ago. So it's not new exactly, I suppose, is it?
Yeah. It's just one of many things, but, I don't know why you brought me in tonight. You kind of caught me as a surprise. So is there any kind of topic you were thinking about leaning into before I go on little tangents like that?
To be honest, mate, I'm just here winging it as I usually do. I tend not to make plans because they usually fall flat on their face about 5 minutes before we go on air, so...
Magic.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything on the front of your mind that's maybe you want to discuss or throw some angles about? Anything particular?
Mm-hmm. Something I am very interested in, and particularly with a group of people that are involved with us now, is what's happening in Nottingham. Nottingham does seem to be a central focal point in the UK for not only Tom Crawford's case, but it's also... It seems that a very large number of children abused in care are in Nottingham. there's all kinds of corruption going on in Nottingham. The Ben Fellows, Ken Clarke thing leads back to Nottingham because he's a Nottinghamshire MP, I believe. So, you got any take on that, Lee?
I personally stay away from all of that.
Mm.
It's darker and deeper than most people imagine, so I don't go near it. That's not for me to go to.
No, I can't say I blame you. It is very dark, and when we're covering these subjects, it's quite harrowing.
Yeah.
My view is, if people are prepared to talk about what they've been through, then if we can give them a platform, then that's the least we can do.
I'm one of these people, I'm an advocate of, you pick your field, and you go for it. Just don't pull me into the field using guilt and say, well, you should look into this. I chose my path a long time ago, and yeah, I looked into it. I looked into the whole Starfire ritual. If no one's ever heard of that, investigate that one. That might lead you into a rabbit hole somewhere. The Starfire ritual. So yeah, I've looked into it, but it's not really where I want to go. I'm not going there because I'm not meant to go there. I've been looking into ancient history, ancient mythology, things like that. But it's connected. I'll just say that. It's all connected. Strangely enough, it is.
Starfire ritual? I've not heard about that. I'll have to make a note of that and have a look into that later.
It used to be on the internet quite a lot, but nowadays there's not much about.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I looked into it about 2001 when I got online, and I started looking into certain subject matter, and there was lots of it. But today, no, it's hard to find.
Yeah, I was still on the hamster wheel in 2001.
Yeah.
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. Let's just face it, there's a cult system we call politics that still follows the old Babylonian religions. We still do the same things.
Yeah.
So work out how deep that is. If you can magnify it by, I don't know, however big that figure is in your head. Mm-hmm. You know, it's industrial scale, I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, we've got Luby Lou there and saying, yes, it's all connected, Lee.
Yeah. But again, you will come across it on your path, whether you want to stay in that field and get pulled into it, that's entirely up to you. I've got free will to go. No, I'm carrying on where I'm going. I'm looking into other things. Mm-hmm. I understand it. I know why it's connected.
Yeah. And what particular things are you looking into at the moment then, Lee?
I'm trying to get a guest on myself for Gil Broussard, you know, this Planet X idea.
Oh, yeah.
I quite like his material. Mm-hmm. His dates kind of make me think about a few things. I'd love to discuss a few ideas with him, because I think generally he's not far off, if it's valid.
The Planet X Nibiru, the same thing, is it?
Well, it's the same name.
Yeah.
It's just a big body that we can't see. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the problem everyone's whinging about. Well, is it going to hit Earth? It doesn't matter. Number one, it's in between the sun and us, so it's not going to connect with us. But you're not going to see it either. You're going to feel it. Well, you're not going to see it until it goes in front of the sun.
So why can't we see it then, Lee?
Because it's in the infrared spectrum of light.
Ah, right.
You can't see it in that spectrum of light. Try looking into a disco light, you know, the ultraviolet ones, the big blue ones. Try and look into them. You can't see in that light either. That's why it hurts your eyes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
We're kind of, on the occult level, we're boxed into the idea that the rainbow colour of light, that spectrum of light, apparently is freedom. But on the occult level, there's 7 of them, isn't there? And 7's a bit of a occult number.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a prison. It's a prison.
Mm-hmm.
Prism and Prison. Because you're only dealing with the light of the sun.
Yeah.
All the occult stuff that the sun obscures, you're blind to it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, most of the occultists, they can change their brainwaves to see in these realms that we can't.
So rather than seeing in a different dimension, that's a different level of vibration.
Well, times as someone said to you, you know, I don't see him in the same light anymore. Where did that come from? I mean, it's obviously an old adage, but where does it come from? And when you think about it, I don't look at you in the same light anymore. It's a strange thing to say, don't you think?
Yeah, it is a strange turn of phrase, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it comes with a lot of these ideas that just because they're invisible doesn't mean they're not real either. If you can't see them, doesn't make them not real.
No, well, there's a lot
like
of
the
things.
wind. You know, you can't see the wind, but can you feel it? Well, that to me could be an astral body bringing in a wake. Mm-hmm. You know, electromagnetic wave, and you're going to feel the bow of it as a little ship on the sea. Yeah.
Yeah, I get
That's
you
my
there.
angle of all of that's where I've been travelling for the last 20 years. I've been researching this stuff. So all of this Planet X stuff, I'm not thinking of it of catastrophe. I'm thinking force, energy. What's that going to do with our sun? Because the sun's going to reflect that back to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's where I'm going with all this. Energy. Because the electric universe, when I heard that first postulated, I was like, bingo, that's the one. Someone's got that too.
Yes, I did kind of latch onto that a little bit when I first heard it, and I thought, yeah, that's really good. I'll tell you something I did pick up, and it was Ken in the chat room who put me onto it, a book by Peter Plichter called God's Secret Formula. It's right there in front of me there, yeah. And have you read it at all?
No, I've not heard of that one.
Oh, it's about the mathematical nature of space and creation, and it delves into the prime number cross. And, you know, we're talking prime numbers, well, all numbers, they're just man-made, man-created ideas to just for counting and stuff like that and doing mathematics. Yeah. But when you look into it a bit deeper, the whole nature of the universe appears to be a numerical thing. And numbers, rather than being just abstract concepts, are real things. And when you get arrange the prime numbers in a certain order, you get you arrange them in these circles. You get a cross, the prime number cross, which just happens to be the same cross as the Maltese cross.
Uh-huh.
Yet Plichter, he met several scientists who were leading their field in physics, astrophysics, even one of the Vatican's top scholars, and they acknowledged that, yes, he'd basically destroyed modern day physics, yet for some reason the book's out of print now and nobody's ever heard of Peter Plichter.
So his general premise, what did he conclude? Did he get, surmise it in the best way that you can?
Well, the one thing that I picked up from it is that the whole universe seems to be built on the numbers 2 and 3 and sometimes 4.
Yeah.
But we believe that, or we're led to believe that all space is 3-dimensional. Yet he said that bounded space is definitely 3-dimensional. But when you have unbounded space, it's actually 4-dimensional.
Yeah. So what shape dictates that? What platonic solid would? What's the word I'm trying to find? In a bounded space, which one would be hypothetically better, a cube or a sphere?
Well, off the top of my head, I'd say a sphere.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But why does everything go back to the circle?
I don't know why.
See, the sphere comes out the circle, doesn't it? Without the circle to do your diameters, you can't get a square out of it. Mm-hmm. So the circle comes first.
Yeah.
So most of these people who deal with cubic systems, they've hijacked the original premise of the math.
Yeah.
Have you read Alexander Tom's stuff? He basically said the entire system was based on cubes.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the older systems of like round table groups, things were a bit more equilibrium, a little bit more balanced, and everything had an equal portion. Well, you start building cubic systems and you have a hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And you can't build pyramids out of circles, can you?
Mm.
So the thing is, all of our systems are based on grids, aren't they?
Yeah.
When NASA do their stuff, it's all about grids. So what system have we got that seems to relate to a cube?
Well, we don't seem... Oh, sorry, what system have we got? I'm not with you, sorry, Lee.
Every chart you'll see of a government or a corporation, you'll see a pyramidic hierarchy, don't you? There's an apex at the top.
Yeah.
Who we don't know who they are. And then you have all the minions all the way down to the foundation stones, which is all slaves. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, when you get compartmentalized, you're just like another little cube getting slotted into the pyramid.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of secret chambers in the pyramid that you don't know about, like Giza. The analogy is the same. There's a secret network within the pyramid.
I get you.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a hierarchy. There's no way you're getting up from the bottom. You're placed there.
Yeah.
Circle systems don't do that. It's randomized, isn't it? No. Usually.
Yeah.
Anyone can take a position.
Uh-huh.
You can't in a pyramid system. There's always a top and there's a bottom. And secret chambers and secret doorways and secret passages to the top.
Mm-hmm.
So what I say to people is, start looking at what system you have, not just the political system or the religious system, but look at the architectural system, because it's not good.
Mm-hmm. Ken's actually reminded me a little bit of or quite a few of the things that I've forgotten from the Plictor book. He said, don't forget we've got the concentric 24-hour clock, and then could translate that into 3D, and don't forget -1. Space equals x squared, y squared geometry, intersecting planes at 90 degrees, the space mirror. Apparently, if you get a mirror with the reflective surface on the surface rather than underneath, as most glass mirrors are, and you have the two exactly 90 degrees, you can stand at a certain point in that mirror, and rather than the mirror reversing the image so that you see the mirror image, you actually see a real live image. And apparently if you meditate in that space, really strange things start to happen, but I haven't looked into that myself. But I've only read the book once. I think Ken's secretly probably read it several more times than me.
Yeah, I looked into a little study once. It was a strange article I found. I think it was an Indian physicist. And what he done was he'd done a test around the world to see if people could send telepathic messages to people in different locations. So what he did is I think he had about 6 people placed on different grid locations, different latitudes, longitudes. Mm-hmm. And he found, interesting enough, the biggest surge of anyone who was responsive was when, I think it was between 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 5:30 because of sidereal time.
Oh, yeah.
So when the sun hits its, I think it's zenith, in sidereal time, people are more empathic, telepathic, they're more mindful, more meditative. If you want to contact someone, you could sit between 3 and 5:30 in the afternoon, sidereal time, and try and send someone a message. Apparently the graphs were all pointing out that people were hearing things. They felt someone was trying to tell them something, even if they couldn't hear it. Mm-hmm. Interesting little study. Again, looking at sidereal time, because sidereal time is different than the one we've got now.
Yeah. I did touch on that briefly. I've just also finished reading Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods. I'm quite looking forward to his new book, Magicians of the Gods, which is out in September.
You gave me the link yesterday for that?
Did I? No, it wasn't me, I don't think.
Well, that's synchronistic because I watched that this morning. But, he was talking about cataclysmic comets, and I'm like, wow, here's someone who's on my wavelength now.
Oh, was that the Art Bell interview?
Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to that yesterday myself.
But he was talking about the same thing, there was a cosmic cataclysm, X amount of time, and I'm like, finally someone's bringing this, but luckily if it's Graham Hancock, he's well respected, he's got more of a voice than I have, but he's on my stuff. He's on my stuff now, and that's good. Yeah,
but it's glad that he's picked up on what you're doing, though.
He's a bigger writer than me. Fingerprints was the first book I ever read, and it's a fantastic book. Yeah, really opens your eyes.
It's all the more remarkable to me when you find out that he was completely stoned all the time he was writing it.
Yeah. And then he was on ayahuasca for the other ones.
Yeah.
So, at least he's tapping into something. I think we all do on some level. Depends what drugs we find stimulating enough to get us there. Mm-hmm.
Well, on that subject, I've had my eyes opened recently, the last 6 months particularly. I saw a YouTube video of a guy speaking at New Horizons, a guy called Steve Johnson, the Provable Predictions, I think it's called, New Horizons. If you Google that, you'll find it.
Yeah.
And what attracted me to it initially was that a guy that we'd met a few times at conferences called Steve Mearer, who runs MAPIT, Manchester Anomalous Phenomena Investigation Team.
It's a mouthful.
Was introducing him, and he was basically saying how all these prophets throughout history, when you start looking into the statistics and all that, it doesn't really stack up. Yeah. But then he went on to say, this guy phoned me up and he said, right, you do parapsychology, I'm going to blow your mind, I can see the future, and I'm going to prove it to you.
Yeah.
And at that point, he'd been receiving emails from Steve for 11 years. And he came out with some, the odds of one particular incident that Steve had picked out, and it 189 billion to 1 or something. I thought, whoa, that's impressive. And Steve says, he said, 11 years on, he said, I'm none the wiser about how this guy does it. He said, I'm still trying to prove how he does it, but he said, I haven't got a clue. He said, he has these dreams and visions. He sends them to people in emails, and it happens. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. So contacted the guy on Facebook, and he sent me a message back saying, I don't really do many radio interviews because I don't like talking to dickheads. But he said, I get a good vibe off you. Bear in mind, this is the first message I've got off him. I get a good vibe off you, so I'll do it, So we interviewed him, and I said to him after the show, I said, Steve, what would be really cool is if you could include me in your email list so that at some point in the future we can get you back on, and I've actually received these emails and seen what you're doing. Well, we became quite friendly, and he messaged me quite a lot on Fascist Book, and probably when everybody else has gone to bed and he's got nobody else to talk to, and he's having a break from writing. And one incident that really stuck in my mind was, do you remember this ship that overturned on the Yangtze a couple of months ago? Yeah. I think it was beginning of June. Yeah. The night before, he said to me, right, here's your first psychic test. I went, go on then. He said, what have I had for my tea? And I said to my missus, because she's a bit psychic, allegedly, I said, what do you think Steve had for his tea? She says, oh, sausages. And I said, right, Tina says sausages, I say fish and chips. And he said, you've passed the first test. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then he said, but I had this really weird dream or vision. I can't remember if it was a dream or a vision. And he was talking about the earth being angry and rumbling and grumbling, ships flying through the air, China, and fishing boats. So I thought, oh, that sounds quite interesting. So the next morning I turned my computer on, and there's been a mini hurricane, which I suppose you could class the earth being angry and rumbling and grumbling.
Well, that would make sense.
Capsized this ship, picked it up off the Yangtze, turned it upside down, and people died because a lot of them were asleep, as Steve was when he had this vision. And the first people on the scene were indeed fishing boats. And I thought, whoa. But the trouble is, he does that day in, day out. It gets quite freaky, let me tell you. But,
how far ahead is he? Are they random? How far?
It can vary between the next day or a few weeks, a couple of months sometimes.
But not years in advance?
As far as I'm aware, he's not getting stuff years in advance, but some things he goes back to mails that he wrote a couple of years ago, and he says, it was there, look. So, it is really strange. But what he's doing to prove this to the world is he's writing a book. He's rewriting it for the second or the third time at the minute, and he's hoping to have it out in a couple of weeks. So, that is going to be interesting to see how it's received, because the mainstream media will not touch him with a barge pole. They say he breaches Ofcom rules, and then you scare people, Steve, so we can't have you on. On this email list, there's a ITV news producer who's now producing the news in Dubai. There's Alan Dedicoat, the guy who reads the lottery numbers out every Saturday night. He used to be a BBC newsreader. And I've seen emails that Alan sent him that said, I'm reading out the news story that you sent me 2 weeks ago now, Steve. Stuff like that. And he's got a film producer, an independent film producer, who's a head boy at Eton. Now, Steve's a council house boy from the Midlands, and this guy's head boy at Eton, but he's just amazed by Steve, doesn't know what to make of him at all. So he's got quite a crew around him.
Something like that, I think, on kind of like a theoretical level. How far in the time loop is he? You know what I mean by that? If you can see things 2 weeks in advance, you're kind of in a feedback loop. People call them flashbacks, but if you think about it, if everyone's kind of inside that little realm that exists, and you're tapping into it, how much of a window of prophecy have you got? It looks like he's got like 2 weeks worth, doesn't he, in his time loop?
Sometimes it's like I say, sometimes it's the next day, sometimes it's a couple of weeks, sometimes it's a couple of months. But we had a conversation, we actually had him as a guest on our True Frequency show last Saturday, and we were having a conversation on Skype the day before, because we don't normally talk, because he doesn't know how to work Skype when the kids aren't there, so we just do text messages. But I said to him, well, surely, Steve, if this book gets as big as it should do, then it's going to make people question the nature of time and the so-called linear nature of time, because surely if you're seeing the future, then what you're seeing has already happened, so therefore the linear nature of time isn't really a true picture. And he said, yeah, I think so. I think it's going to lead people to ask all kinds of questions. You know, cause and effect. It kind of stands cause and effect on its head if he knows what the effect is before it's been caused. Yeah,
it's funny you should mention that. There's a guy up north. He's been on Red Ice Radio, funny enough. Tony something. I'll try and remember his name as we go through the show, but he has the impression that time is its own animal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he said, yes, you can time travel and all this because of the fact that it's separate from everything else. But what I said to him at the end of his presentation was like, okay, fair enough. So time is an animal. I said, but time is number. Who's creating the numbers? What is creating the numbers for us to decode and make science out of?
Yeah.
It's all right saying the Big Bang and chemicals, but they're all numbers too. Who's generating the numbers? If this is a big number generator, there's a question for you. Has anyone ever asked that question of themselves? What's creating the numbers?
Well, that kind of leads me to think about the holographic nature of the universe, and are we actually in just a giant computer simulation?
Well, again, another question arises. Okay, then what created that? Out of the numbers? That something else is obviously creating. Or is it the same thing that's creating? Is it flesh and blood? Is another question.
Mm-hmm.
Because matter obviously needs to form, doesn't it? So again, there's all kinds of questions that lead to questions that lead to questions, and there's no answers for them, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
But you can theorise. That's more fun. Because once you realise it's all number, it gets a pickle. It does. There's loads of problems at that point. Forget the Big Bang. What's generating these numbers? It's not a who, is it? It's not a guy sat in an office on a typewriter, and it's, taking an analogue and turning it into digital for us to read. That's not happening.
Wow.
Where's your mind after when you think of it sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, Kaz has just put a link in the chat room there, and there's some quite a horrendous article in the Daily Fail and there's some guy called Steve Johnson in there. Oh, and the funny thing, a really strange thing happened. The Tunisian ISIS thing where all the people were killed on the beach. His daughter was just waiting for her assignment to come through. She was going to work for Thompson's as a kids rep. And I don't know if you noticed, but it was a Thompson hotel. And she flew out to Mallorca to her assignment the day they were flying the bodies back from Tunisia, which kind of was a bit freaky for him.
Yeah.
But the really weird shit was when he sent me a link to the BBC news report, and the witness they were interviewing was called Steve Johnson. So obviously it's not the rarest of names in the world, but that kind of seems a bit of a freaky coincidence. I mean, that's the thing about coincidences. If you're going to put these things down to coincidence, there's got to come a point where you say, okay, well, it's a coincidence up to, I don't know, for argument's sake, 1 billion to 1. But then once it goes beyond 1 billion to 1, it can't be coincidence. You've got to have a finite limit on what can be coincidence, surely.
Well, it's one of those things that, how many do you ignore? Because it doesn't fit in your idea of what you think. So you just reject them. A lot of people do that.
Well, that's the problem with dyed-in-the-wool skeptics, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that is a huge figure, 1 billion to 1. Even anything over 1 billion, it's a huge statistic that shouldn't be a red flag.
Yeah.
It's significant, isn't it, if it's rare? We look for rare alignments and rare cosmology, but, no one considers those, but the occultists do. They'll time them to the second to get them right on the numbers.
Yeah.
But we don't consider them that important, really. As long as that bank statement doesn't look bigger than last month's, we don't really take that much notice of the number.
No.
That's how daft they've got us. That we don't even think that way anymore, because the computer does it all for us.
Yeah, it does worry me, people's dependence these days on computer devices.
Well, again, that article, there's a Kaz popped up about the 13-year-old. Again, I would ask that question to people and listeners. How is that facilitated? Is it the internet at home where the child's on the computer and given free access, unattended, unsupervised? Is it the digital text? Is it the apps that's luring them in? Because there's got to be a mechanism that's getting to the children. It's not by chance, is it? There seems to be an outlet for them to facilitate this.
Yeah.
Probably a reason why the school systems are trying to push this technology onto the kids.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quite a few worries about the technology. I mean, the obvious one to me is when you go into a shop nowadays and you give people the right money, they press a couple of buttons and it tells them what change to give. But if it's £9 and 5p and you give them £10 and 5p, you see them nearly burst into tears because they don't know what to do. Give you a quid back. No, they can't work that out. And it's the same on so many levels. If you just kind of put a little bit of a curved ball in there, people just haven't got a clue how to deal with it.
Yeah, big time. I'll give you an example of a funny one recently. I may have mentioned this once before, but it was just funny for the meltdown. I'd bought the wrong lead for my keyboards. I needed like a longer lead. So I went to Maplin's and I said to the guy, just very simply, I got the wrong product. I need the longer lead. It costs more money. Can I have a refund? No quibbles, no quibbles, no questions asked. All that kind of policy thing that they like to endorse. Mm-hmm. But this guy's like, yeah, okay, just sign this form. I was like, nope, no, just change that for the one that I need and we're good to go. And he's like, but I need you to sign this. I was like, I won't be signing anything today, young man. Just need you to exchange this for the for the 5 meter one. It's actually more money. I'm going to give you more paper. And he went, well, the thing is, the reason why I'm asking for the signature is we've had problems with refunds because some of the managers have done some like accounting thing, and we've been told to sign. I said, so your bosses are accounting frauds? That's good to know. You just told me that you have to do this now to cover liability for your upper managers fucking around with, pardon my French, your refund system. I said, you've got a fraud problem, dude. Don't be looking to me to take liability for that. I'm not signing nothing. Now just change that and I'll be on my way. So the next thing he went, and he rings his boss. Right, because I wouldn't sign this piece of paper. So he calls his boss out. His boss comes trundling up. And he went, this fellow won't sign this. And he's like, well, the thing is, John, not every customer is going to say, they're not always going to sign things, so he's got the right not to. And he's like, oh, right, it's just that he wouldn't sign for the refund and the vouchers. He's like, yeah, but he's entitled to refuse, John. I just stood there laughing at these people going, man, you two are lost. You two are completely lost in the system. You just don't get it. It's just great, because I wouldn't sign anything. And I'm like, because I know the power of the signature through people's internet radio, how powerful that is. No one gets it. And the whole system relies on it.
Yeah.
Relies on it. That's power.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
not as powerful as electromagnetic power. We are so powerful as people. We really, really are. Once people switch on to the power they've got.
Yeah, it's going to be... I mean, I get the feeling that we're at a really, really pivotal moment in history now. Things seem to be... The pace of change seems to be accelerating. And I don't mean the pace of change as in when the next iPhone comes out. I mean the change in people's thinking. People are starting to see through the matrix. They're starting to realise, oh, hang on, this is not what I thought it was. Yeah.
The eyes are just getting widened a little bit each time. A little millimetre every now and again until they're fully wide open. Some people it takes 5 years, some people it takes 3 months, 3 years like Graham Hart. He had his eye opened a bit, and the next thing is, they're wide open, and he gets it. Yeah. It's coming to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But sadly, societal systems themselves and the memberships of them, the people, they're actually going to bring their own pain on themselves if they don't smarten up. Yeah. Which is an ironic paradox in this weird universe we've got. Mm. It's reflective glory. What you throw out, you're going to reflect back onto yourself. So if we carry on doing what we're doing, it's going to augment and magnify. There's no other way of looking at it.
If you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got.
You're going to amplify the volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's your problem. And when things start vibrating too much, you get earthquakes. A lot of this is metaphysical. I come from a metaphysical point of view as well. Whatever we do here will actually magnify and amplify. And it will really affect frequencies on every single level. Not just your new age level.
Yeah.
Every level. Because we're all normal people. We're all gonna act and react differently to stimuli, whether it be fake news, digital media, or actual electromagnetic force. You're going to bow down to one of them.
I just must pull you up there, Lee. You say we're all normal people. Now, you should meet my other half. She's got a bag she carries with us whenever we go and meet people, and it's got emblazoned in big letters on the side, "Normal people scare me." So, but please don't include me in that normal thing.
Sorry, I will rephrase that. I'm not going to say civilized, because that means we've been conquered. Most rational people.
Mm-hmm.
Rational people. If you understood just basics, you would realise that, there's certain forces you have to bow down to.
Mm.
There's certain ones that you don't, and they're the paper ones.
Yes, that kind of reminds me a little bit of... Did you hear that show we did with Rob B the other Tuesday?
What was the topic?
Well, he was talking about occupation and slavery mainly. But one thing he recommended, before anyone starts to look into what's really going on in the world, they should go away and get a good book and read about grammar and understand grammar. And then you can start investigating, because once you understand grammar, you can make sense of all this small print and bullshit that they throw at you to try and confuse you.
Yeah. We don't get taught to analyse English anymore.
Excuse me. No, he was saying that we are an occupied people. And one of the things he led me towards that really got me thinking, I've had some questions raised in my mind about the evacuation or the abandonment of Parliament and Buckingham Palace, because it seems they're doing massive renovation work, allegedly, on both of them at the same time. Now, Bill Maloney was saying both of these places have been pointed to as crime scenes. Yeah. So they're going in there and they're doing all this work, so that's going to remove forensic evidence. But what Rob was actually saying was, if these places are actually being abandoned, which it appears they are to all intents and purposes, that gives chance for the occupying power to take over.
They've already taken over. It was done years ago. See, the problem with the Houses of Parliament, again, most people on People's Internet Radio know what I'm talking about when I say in legal land, right, in legal realm. Parliament is just basically two houses. The House of the Commoners, where the commoners have their, little instructions, and then on the other side is the House of Lords. Now, what people don't get is the House of Lords are all your archbishops and your bishopry. It's your religion. That's your state. They represent that side of the party, which would be, how they like to control land, property, rights, all the good stuff that we all enjoy under this Christian nation that we're all part of. So the whole thing is based upon Protestantism.
You mean this Christian nation that was a pagan nation before it was invaded by the Roman...
Yeah, this is the political world realm view. They see this state as a Christian character, and the Houses of Lords and the House of Commons are supposed to be an equally balancing power to serve the people. But it doesn't do that, does it? Because it got hijacked about 3 years ago. They removed the House of Lords from being an appellate court of justice. In other words, the highest court in the country, or in the state of London. They removed that and created something called the Supreme Court of England. That's where you go now. That's the corporation that's been hijacked. So your House of Lords doesn't really exist as a court either, which is why they never get House of Lords court convened. It doesn't exist anymore. So if you look into the Supreme Court of England, that's where it all is. Now that's the seat of justice, allegedly.
Oh, just us.
Yeah. And the House of Commons is supposed to be there, so you instruct your lords, your kings that you're subject of, to not be so harsh on you. Can you change this law? But we see now that both of them are paid off, so they're all grilling you now for money. They're both attacking you.
Yeah.
So you've got two wolves, and you're the sheep now. So yeah, he could very much get rid of the Houses of Parliament. Yeah, because you're also dividing the church from the state, because you're getting rid of both at the same time. Now, do you think the system's going to let you do that? What are you going to get without? What are you going to have without those two entities being there? What do you replace them with in the void?
Tyrannical dictatorship, possibly.
Well, that's usually what happens when that void becomes so, doesn't it? That something jumps in.
Yeah.
Our little task this time round is to stop that happening. Because we keep making that same mistake. Someone jumps into the black hole and fills it, and it's not for us.
Mm-hmm. I just noticed an interesting comment in chat there from Susie. She said that the Galactic Centre was open earlier this year. It blasted us with source energy. We are waking up, ascending.
Okay.
No, Susie's somebody I've spent a lot of time talking to, and she's got a very interesting angle on this, and yeah, she does talk a lot of sense. So,
okay, can I just address one thing? This is kind of ironic. I was chatting with my girlfriend about this today. Right, this term ascension, what's its opposite?
Descension, surely.
Do you ever hear anyone talking about descension?
Not as a rule, no.
So why is there only one way up? Most spheres that which we pretty much are with a magnetic field, for some reason the human being generates its own electromagnetic field through bones, through its chemistry. So that's a fascinating thing in itself, that we're actually a walking magnet.
Yeah.
But secondly, most magnets have a unified field around it. In other words, three-dimensionally, 360 degrees all the way around. And it will decrease and increase equally, should it not? Yeah?
Yeah.
So if you're going to just purely go up, how does anything function when it's a hierarchical system where you're going up and only up? Why aren't you going out in every direction uniformly?
That's a
it
good
seems
question.
very constricting to me. You know what I mean? I'm only going to one realm, which is only happens to be 7 colours of the rainbow. So I'm going to go to the rainbow realm. That doesn't suit me, to be honest. I want to go everywhere. I won't get that through the rainbow.
No.
I think that's where most of these new agers keep getting tricked. The rainbow colours. Look into the rainbow. It belongs to someone. Trust me, it's someone else's symbol, and you don't particularly want to be associated with it. It's very constricting.
But then if you take on board quantum physics, the rainbow doesn't exist until you observe it.
Well, CERN's looking for rainbow gravity. Ask yourself what they're looking for that specificity about gravity. Rainbow gravity. Have a little Google into that and see what that is. That might pop your socks off.
Yeah.
Think of a black hole opening in space. Let's just theorize that. Let's pretend that CERN gets to the power it's supposed to do. It then uses the energy that's coming in, this wave of consciousness. Let's just say it uses that as an amplification.
Yeah.
And it does what it's supposed to do, and it unlocks something. That black hole then will probably distribute a rainbow halo around it. That's the symbol in the Bible that says, that's the symbol I set in the sky as a seal between me and the earth. It doesn't mention people. It says me and the earth. So from Earth's perspective, if Earth was to look up into space, as a conscious energy, if you think it's Gaia, well, let's just pretend Gaia looks up into the sky and sees a black hole with a rainbow around it. That will be the God of the Bible saying, that's the sign I put in the sky for you on Earth. But it has nothing to do with the people of it. It's just my bond with Earth. We're connected in that way. Totally spins everything when you start looking at it from that point of view. Rather than just saying, oh, it's the rainbow that does the arch in the sky. No, that's not what it's talking about. Especially if you start seeing rainbows in the sky when there's been no rain. When your sky starts going a rainbow colour. I think that will be an electromagnetic disturbance. Lots of high energy coming in. And that's when people are going to start taking notice of signs and symbols in the sky, because the sky colour's possibly going to change.
Well, we have been having some pretty huge CMEs hitting the Earth lately, haven't we? Which the ones we possibly warned about that were going to destroy all the communication systems with EMP. But right now everything seems to be working. It seems to be working. I don't know. Is it working? Is it only working in my mind? Or I'm never quite sure.
The thing is, one big thing with those, everyone would say, oh, that's such a negative thing to say. A big, massive solar event, CME, it wipes off our power grid. We all lose our bitcoins. And I'm like, maybe that's a good thing, though. Think about it. Starting from scratch, when you've got all the knowledge of how to do these things again. All right, it's going to take it a bit longer. You haven't got the infrastructure to set it all up. Yeah. But you've got the basic elemental chemicals to do it all. It's not going to take you 100,000 years again, is it? It might take you, 10 years.
Yeah.
And you can implement all the other stuff that doesn't work and get rid of it and start a whole new infrastructure up. So I see it from a positive there. If something went tits up tomorrow and it did knock out the power grid and all the Wi-Fi, which again isn't a bad thing if that suddenly disappeared overnight, it could be a good release. It could be like being freed from your bonds on one level. Yeah. Especially if it's going to enslave you in the future. Maybe the breath of God would go, God being the light in the sky, the big sun. That Lord of Light might go burp one day and turn all the lights off. That might not be a bad thing. If you think about it, all right, immediately it's a bad thing because hospitals go out and all these services go out. That's bad. But what I'm saying as a longer viewpoint, if you looked at it, you stop your own enslavement and you start again with a different level.
Well, on the subject of hospitals going out, I've come to the conclusion lately that hospitals aren't always very good for your health. I mean, if you've got a broken leg or you've got one of your arms hanging off, usually they can help out a bit. But if you go in with some kind of dis-ease, all you're ever going to get from them is a lifetime prescription, isn't it? Yeah.
You know me, I'm kind of a proponent of what I call the National Harm Service and not to go there if possible. And find some remedies with good health and healing, which this radio station's all about. It's all about mental health, physical health, scientific health, emotional health, all the good stuff that we need to get through and change the system for what it needs to be changed, but it's going to take a push.
Yeah. It is. Right, Lee, I don't know about you, but I think it's possibly time for a wee break.
Absolutely, young man.
Let me see if I can find the right screen, and we'll put a bit of something on. Welcome back to Enemy Within. There was a track there played for Frags, who's not actually listening. I don't think he's having a couple of pints, but I'm sure he'll catch it on the podcast later. And having an interesting night with Lee. It's certainly making me think. I'd just like to say a quick hello to everyone who's contributing in the chat room. We've got quite a full one tonight. We've got Are You Addressing Me? We've got Derby7, E. McPhail, Enemy... Oh, no, that's me. And then we've got Free Willy, G-Man, Hugh, Jack, Jeff, John McCann, Just Jimmy again. And we've got Kaz Tigger, Ken Pearson, Kieran Mahon, Luby Lou, Mark Smith, Martin Farrell, Miguel Benitez Martin, Newman, Rita Benfield, Nod On, Pat Veldon, Patrick Nee, Paul Sturm, Sam Stewart, and Susan Antonio Vickers. Oh, that sounds really posh, that. Hi, Susie. Tiger Boy, Tony. Thanks for all your help, Tony. UK Prepper. And then there's some guy called Unique Lee. Not heard of him, have you?
No, who the hell's that?
And then we've got Vin, just to round it all off. So where were we then, Lee? Because you completely blown my mind, man.
I think we're talking about the sun, weren't we? And having a bit of a burp.
Oh, yes, yes.
See, how many movies have we noticed where that occurs?
I'm not terribly
movies.
sure lately because I've kind of stopped watching a lot of movies. I watched the occasional one on a recommendation. I watched the 1956 sci-fi movie a few weeks back. That was quite interesting. But no, I haven't watched many movies lately. I have to get into a few more. I've got a load of recommendations, but when you're doing this crazy thing, I mean, I'm sure you must find it difficult to fit things in, Lee, but I mean, we've been doing 5 shows a week since we started on here, and it's just absolutely mad. I've been forgetting to eat and sleep and stuff like that, but we've knocked the Wednesdays on the head for the time being, so hopefully things will be a bit less frenetic.
This is one of the reasons why I only do a Friday, because it is time consuming. It's a lot of stuff to take in and kind of analyse, and it's draining. It's really, really draining.
Yeah.
So yeah, once a week enough for me, because I, like yourself, it can consume you. Get off the internet a bit and find a hobby. Do something else, spend time with other people. But yeah, get off the internet for a bit. It'll do the world a good.
Yeah, I try and make a point of doing at least a couple of hours of reading before I switch my computer on every day.
Yeah.
And thanks to Mr. Hancock, I got back into that because he's quite a good read.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, as a resource, People's Internet Radio, the documents and some of the research material, if any new listeners listening in there, do pop over to the research section, and there's some interesting material there that's well worth a peruse.
Oh, fascinating,
well worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one good thing. The chat itself, is one thing, but the resources we have here, it's staggering. It is.
It is, yeah. What amazes me all the time is the number of really well-informed people you get in the chat room. Because if you get somebody on and they miss one small thing out, or they get something slightly wrong, or they give a controversial opinion, you've always got somebody coming back with a different point of view. And it's not just, well, you're wrong because I know better than you. It's all very well reasoned, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, it's nice to see a natural conflict, because one's wrong and one's right. It can only really, people will tell you this duality world we have of light and dark, it's either on or off. It's binary language. Mm-hmm. So it's either false or it's true. It's going to conflict unless you find agreement.
Mm.
It's basic, isn't it? If you want to keep this number 3 as a magical number, in a duality it's all well and good to have an on and off. But where's the decision maker that says, well, do I want to turn anything on or off? Where's the observer?
That's why 3 is the magic number, is that, you think?
Well, you need the third judge. You need someone who observes and is neither left nor right. He's just neutral. But that's your first pyramidal form.
Mm.
Is it right or is it left? What am I? Ding! Something splits off again. I'm a male, female. Ding! Another duality. But the first question is, what am I? Here's a pyramid. Same idea. It's all 3s.
You've mangled...
Which is interesting.
Mangled my brain already, Lee.
Pink Floyd kind of shows you as well. He shows you the religious system.
Oh, yeah.
White light. And what goes into the white light through the pyramid to get back to the white light. Because you're a split, divided thing that's separated in 7 colours. But to get through to the white light, you've got to go through the pyramidal hierarchical control system, which will release you somehow.
Mm.
It's a house of power, isn't it? It's an energy. It's a storehouse. It's an energy centre. So that's where your heart is, in there.
Yes.
As another colour of the rainbow somewhere. But eventually you'll join the rest and jump out into the white stream. Go somewhere, pardon me.
Interesting comment there from Jimmy. He said it could be either true or false, or unknown.
Still 3? Yeah. Well done, Jimmy. Top marks, man. That's a good answer, actually. It's a very good one I would applaud.
Oh, and then Sam's gone false or true or paradox.
Well, paradox, you need a true or a false to make that determination, don't you?
Yeah.
But again, this is the quality and the caliber of the chat room. It's a gauntlet sometimes. They'll roast you.
Oh, yeah. Beware of making a slip-up, because they'll soon put you right.
Yeah. But going back to the sun, when I used to hear religious people, and they say the Lord this and the Lord that, at least I understand what my Lord is and where it is. And I don't give it a male or a female attribute, I just call it the Lord of Light. And it's up there hanging in the sky. And it's the only one that I bow to, because it is higher than me. I have no choice about that. And it controls everything I'll ever do. It's right to recognise that, rather than as some kind of entity. There is a pyramidal control system that has it and its way in and its way out. When I can just look to the sun and go, that's my Lord of Light. Without that, I'm shagged.
Yeah, that fits in with me. I mean, what's his name? George Carlin. He said, we believe in the big invisible man in the sky who tells you what to do. And if you don't do what he says, you're going to burn in hell forever. But he loves you. And he needs your money.
That's the line, isn't it? He loves me, but he can't do without it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite remarkable that God is so all-powerful, but he's absolutely rubbish with money. He keeps running out of the stuff. Keeps needing yours.
Yeah. But the warmth glow of the sun, you could equate to the love of God, couldn't you? Quite simply. God, the Lord. It's the same analogy. It's that thing in the sky. Because without it, it's dark. And it's cold. And it probably won't survive very long.
No, I don't think we'd survive very long at all without that big shiny thing in the sky. Oh, mind you, we've done a pretty good job in the UK this summer, because we haven't seen it a terrible lot, have we?
No, not really. No, they're obscuring the Lord from us.
Mm.
But what I find interesting is, why would you try and obscure it anyway? I mean, doesn't everyone recognise that the sun is the all-powerful, all-seeing, all-knowing? Because, usually you go through that to get out of here. If you go with the ancient principles, that's the gateway in, the gateway out. It's not through the pyramidal system on Earth. The sun's the gate.
Hmm.
It's the Hermetic principle, I'm sure you're familiar with Hermetics.
Vaguely, yes. Yeah,
Vaguely.
Yeah, not...
Well, the idea is, again, I like whether it's true or not, I don't particularly worry about it that much anymore, but the principle is that you come in through every single sphere of the planets, and you pick up a character trait, what they call clothing, and as you go through all 9 of them, it clothes you. Mm-hmm. So when you come to Earth and you get insouled into this fleshy thing that we've got, this lovely little biosuit, it's alone, You're here for a temporary time, and to find life, to raise yourself from the dead, which you are inside your prison of the soul, your body now, because you're a spirit and you're inside a fleshy thing as a prisoner, and it's dark, but eventually you will find the light and raise yourself out of the dead and into life, which is why they always put you in a tomb, the sarcophagus.
Yeah.
It didn't represent death. It was the death and the rising of life.
Uh-huh.
You were inside your body as a dark spirit, without any light. But through knowledge and through wisdom and through love and learning and experience, you will find the true source of your light, and that's the sun. And you'll return through it and give all your clothes back. One by one, you'll derobe and go on to wherever you were supposed to go after it. They didn't really say, it was just the afterlife. But it's better than reincarnation. You come in, you go out.
Mm.
You don't stay in control,
Because with reincarnation, you're on the hamster wheel. You're just going round and round and round.
Round and round and round. But at least with the gate, you can come in and you can leave.
Yeah.
These are the reincarnation systems, the time loops.
Uh-huh.
That's just the way I interpret this stuff. I could be just miles off, but I don't fall for this New Age nonsense. It just doesn't work for me. There's no rationality to it at all. Wonderful words and memes and, Kickstarter terms, but they don't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I try and keep an open mind, but I'm kind of wary as well. I don't want it so open that my brains fall out, as Tom often accuses me of. Some of the things I talk to him about when we're just having a couple of hours on our own with no guest. And he says, yeah, it's all very well having an open mind, but don't let your brains fall out.
Yeah, I don't mean that. If you are a New Age, if you believe you are of that ethos, good luck to you. I wish you well. I would say, look at it again. Look exactly what's dealing with. Because the ascension idea really can't work. It can't. Mm-hmm. If this is all based on ladders, and you just go up ladders, well, that's a strange universe we've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems very strange to have a stable ladder there in a crazy, chaotic world of randomness and order at the same time.
I was going to say, when you said randomness, though, I thought, what, really?
Well, it depends on observation, doesn't it?
Like so much of the universe, the observation, as well as bringing it into existence, seems to change what it is. I mean, I always wondered as a child, even from being quite small, when I see a tree or a car or a house, does everybody see exactly the same as I do? Now, we were told, everybody sees, your eye's a camera, your brain's just a computer decoding what the camera sees. Yeah. But it appears, as I've learnt a little bit more and studied it, then we don't all see the same. It's all dependent on the culture that we're brought up in, the geographical area that we live in, the surroundings that we've got, and numerous other things. The world that you see might be completely... I mean, we might call that a car, but I'm thinking, well, when you look at a car, you might see a dragon or a tennis racket or something, but what I call a car and you call a car is the same thing, because we're looking essentially in the same direction. But I suppose that's a bit too oversimplistic, but it always bothered me as a child, and I couldn't work out why, because everybody was saying, well, of course we all see the same things, we're all looking at the same thing. Yeah. Now it appears that with my understanding of the various things that I've read over the years, that perhaps we don't.
Well, considering what your stimuli would be in a totally different culture, let's just go extreme and say, let's just pretend the one society is cannibalistic. Mm-hmm. And you try and interject that into a so-called civilized populace.
Yeah.
You're going to find that there's going to be an incompatibility there somewhere. To you, what they're doing is, malevolently evil. To them, it's normal.
Yeah.
We've got exactly the same thing with our predatory societal systems that we've got through this pyramidal control grid, through the school system, which is accessing your children in exactly the same way. If you look at it, it does the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, the school system is something that's another thing that's bothered me. When I was at school, and I remember going the first day and come home and, did you like it? I said, well, it's not very good because I want me to go back again tomorrow. And little did I realise what they got in store for me. I hated every bloody minute of it.
Oh, that's funny.
No, I mean, at least the way I look at it, we had half a chance of finding out what the world was about, although we were told all these stories, histories, maths, science, all this, that probably isn't quite as true as we're led to believe. We had half a chance then because we were taught to think critically, whereas nowadays children are just taught, you will obey. This is how it is. Don't question it. If you do question it, you'll be in trouble.
Well, let's just pull back a bit. You mentioned that thing before about observation. Mm-hmm. What if children are just stuck with their eyes glued to some kind of screen or a device? Yeah. Would you say on a quantum level that any of those children are changing their own reality into anything that's beneficial for them when they stare at a screen?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
So what exactly are they creating for themselves in that virtual world that they're investing every ounce of their energy into? What are they going to get for their investment?
Well, what it makes me think of is having your head stuck in the sand. And what does that do? It leaves your arse in the air and exposed.
So the question then rises up, well, how the hell do you stop that happening? Do parents have to intervene and drag those kids off the screen and say, nah, no more, get off the Borg grid. It's not going to serve you very well. Go and play with your friends.
Oh, there's an alien concept, Lee. Go out and play.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, there's an article today in the Daily Fail talking about climbing trees. Apparently it's good for your mental health and all this, and I thought, well, they're not letting kids do that. So why show adults doing it? It's just a tree.
Got me kicked out of Cubs climbing trees. We're supposed to be saying prayers at the time, so.
I think the initiation rite was if you got to the second branch of the tree and you fell off it, see how you could handle a good fall. Mm. But nowadays, your kids can't even run across the playground without someone saying, stop that, that's health and safety risk.
Yeah, well, where I live is quite refreshing because we live in a block of flats that's quite new, and we're on the first floor, so we're kind of up in the sky a bit and see a bit of what's going on around us rather than just looking out at next door's garden. But most of the people who live in our flats, I think over 90%, are of Eastern European descent. They've all been here for a few weeks or months, not many of them for years.
Yeah.
And they seem to be churning out children pretty rapidly. But one thing I do notice about the children is they're always outside playing, and they're running around. They've got their bicycles, they've got their skin knees and scrapes all down the nose where they've been off the bike and all down the tarmac. But you see English kids, not a bar of it.
No. And it's a grown phenomenon. It is. I mean, there was an article there that I read. I was going to bring it on tonight's show. I'll probably cover it at some point, but it was the narcissist register. If you get 5 out of 10, it's a good thing and it's good for your confidence. And I thought, a narcissist register that's beneficial for you. How does that work? Mm. How the hell can that possibly work if you're a narcissist and it's going to somehow make you successful and confident? Really? Don't think that's going to work for me.
It's going to just...
I mean, narcissism is a really ugly trait. I would never have an idea that you could actually positify or make that into a positive, like it's some kind of confidence thing or a good ego. Narcissism's really ugly, isn't it?
Well, I can see on one level, if you don't love yourself, it's quite difficult to love others. But narcissism is way more than that, isn't it?
Well, it's projecting your light out, mostly, isn't it, because of what you're getting fed? Because narcissism requires feeding, otherwise they can't be narcissists. It's not like them looking in the mirror at themselves, 24/7. But once you go out into the real world and they don't feed you, it disappears. So they need to be fed. So again, society births them. But now if they're promoting that like as a good thing, we're going to have probably a big surge in narcissists. They're going to be a problem. It just makes sense. You know.
And if I'm right, most psychopaths are narcissistic.
Mm-hmm. They have a tendency, don't they? Because they have power.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be successful, that means you're going to have a position of authority. And people like power. So you can kind of see where the language is, kind of sexifying the idea that just be a bad boss, be a bit brutal, be a bit, don't take no shit kind of thing. And I'm like, that's going to backfire.
Smacks a bit of common purpose, that.
Yeah, slightly, yeah. I kind of thought that myself, because it's both, it's genderless. It doesn't matter male or female. It's just the idea that now is a confidence thing. It's a good trait to have. Even if it's 5 out of 10. And you're not a true narcissist, 5 out of 10 is good enough. I'm like, ooh. Really engendering the, as Starfall Jones says, A-type personalities. Yeah. And labeling them that way. It's kind of like the tagging idea. Mm-hmm. Have the test. We can confirm you're a narcissist. That'll go on your file. We'll use it against you.
Oh, yeah.
People don't realise the counter side of this. Well, how are they using it? How do they see you? Because I'll guarantee you this, they don't perceive you the way you perceive them. No.
Oh, God, no.
No, not at all.
No, I mean, I think we're seen as some kind of infestation, aren't we?
Apart from being a walking wallet.
Mm.
I mean, I watched The Apprentice a couple of years ago, just for, one night I was bored. And one thing I realised from... Sorry,
I'm proud to say I have never, ever seen a single episode of The Apprentice, but carry on, Lee.
Curious cat. I had to one night.
Yeah.
And it was just the fact that these so-called entrepreneurs, the way they think their mindset is you're just a walking wallet, and it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, Asian, yellow, red. You're not even human to them. You're literally a leather wallet that they can see some paper coming out of, regardless of what you are. There's no empathy towards you. You're just a thing to them to extract. And I was like, wow, they actually want these people to work for them. That's the probably the creepiest thing I ever watched, that these people just have no regard for you as people. Just a wallet to extract money from.
I mean, to be fair, I've come across that with quite a few of the people that I worked for in the hamster wheel life that I had before. Miss Spartan took over and decided that I wasn't going to be a lorry driver anymore. But, I've just got a message there I've just spotted in the chat room from Kaz. His name is Fabian Gwinnen. Now, I'm just reading between the lines. I haven't seen the whole message. I'm wondering if that's the young guy who was knocked off his bicycle when she was on the air with me the other week. And if it is, I hope you get better soon, mate. Get well soon, Fabian. Or Fabian. I don't know.
Fabian. Interesting name. So, let's divert into another subject matter, do you think? Seems we've covered a lot of stuff, haven't we?
Yeah, well, that's it. The beauty of it is... Oh, let's have a look. I've got a message here. Give a shout out to Fabian Gwinnen, 13-year-old, sorry. We got mugged today. Sorry to hear that, Kaz. I hope he's alright, and you get the scum that did it. Oh, sorry, the peacekeepers, policy officers, whatever, get them and sort them out.
Yeah, I don't think we can count on good old PC plod anymore.
Well, the evidence that we're seeing with our eyes of what they're doing lately is certainly not.
But again, they're kind of all victims of this horrible pyramidal system we've got, which, strangely enough, they've all become corporations, and they work for profit. Like any corporation, to survive, they've got to make profit. So that's what kind of you've got. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised one day, honestly, I'm going to make a prophecy like your friend, I wouldn't be surprised one day if police cars were suddenly wearing Wonga labels and endorsements or Shell, just to get some revenue in. Because that's what they've become. The corporations now.
Yeah, it surprised me when I saw, I can't remember who it was saying that police, councils, blah, 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 they're all corporations. And when you look on Dun & Bradstreet, they're all sure as hell registered there.
Yeah.
The weird thing is when you look at councils, it turns out that most councils have got several different identities. Mm-hmm. And try finding out which one's the real one. It's very difficult. That's something that Rob Beeves covered with Wigan Council. I think they've got 5 different corporate identities.
Well, here's an interesting little factoid for you. Even if you are a council, regardless of where you are in the country, you have to be under statute, under the Municipal Corporations Act of 1835, to become a council in the first place. Mm-hmm. Look there first. There's where your answers lie, and it tells you everything that council can and can't do. And what it exactly does.
Yeah.
Because it's a trust. It's supposed to be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got the power to create their own credits and to deal with Her Majesty's revenue. So they can get loans and finance. Very interesting, the structure of the Municipal Corporations Act of 1835. Do check it out if you want to see how your councils operate and what they're supposed to do.
Yes. They have a duty of care, don't they?
You can actually, under that law, if you're a council, if you're an inhabitant of a council or a borough, you have the absolute right to sell your wares unhindered, free of tax. Mm-hmm. Things like in the miscellaneous section, under free trading. In other words, you've got ancient rights to do what the hell you like before the corporation was created. But people don't choose to do that. They register their corporations and become incorporated into the crown. But you can't really deal on the streets, as we've seen. In Rome, you've got to get a license to trade on the streets. But under our old natural laws, we could sell our wares anywhere, unhindered.
Here's a good one for the police cars. Susie just come up with it. Just do it logo. I told you she switched on.
I think someone's copyrighted that phrase, though, haven't they?
Oh, yeah, I think, yeah.
See, copyright's an interesting thing. Have you heard of copyleft?
No, funnily enough, I haven't.
Means it's just not copyrightable. Everything you send out, people can take, and it's free. Absolutely free.
Uh-huh.
So I would say everything I do on people's internet radio is copy left. Take it, do what the hell you want with it. It's not mine, it's the computer's now. I transferred most of my possessions as soon as it turned into a binary code, so none of it's mine. But enjoy it, whatever waveform it comes in. It's just not mine anymore. I take all liability off it. Nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Wave liability.
I get quite a few people saying, can we put the show on YouTube, or can we share it here or there, or stream it, or what? They say, yeah, do what you like with it. We're not about ego or this is us, this is what we do. We're about getting information out. And if you want to put that information out somewhere else, please do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, generally speaking, I would promote the donate button just to keep the network going and to keep the bandwidth as best as we can to do things like Vin's show where he gets the screen on. And I think Amac Files does it on a Saturday, is it? The Amac Files, and she gets the screen on so people and viewers can see the hosts.
No, it's Monday or Tuesday, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
I think Jim, you can tell us what day that is. But the point is, the donate button is important because it does keep us chatting like this and just sharing some information and ideas and perspectives of how to look at things maybe in a different light these days. Mm-hmm. Judging by what's going on, because there's definitely pattern formations coming. And we're very good at pattern recognition, humans, apparently.
Yes. Yes, we are. I've just checked. The Amash Files is on Tuesday, 11 till 1 a.m.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the donate button helps us keep all the streams and gets us a little bit of bandwidth. But everything we do here is everything I would do today is copy left. It's free to use. Do what you will with it. Uh-huh. It's just information.
Yes. Can you copyright information that you're sharing with people?
Well, again, am I really sharing? I'm not. I'm taking all of my voice and all of my finger energy, and it's getting transposed into a digital language. So it ends as soon as it goes out the port. I can't physically hold it anymore. It's been transformed into a different element, a different thing. So it's definitely not mine. So if you want to call it sharing, I suppose it is, yeah. Technically it's sharing, but I'm not sharing it. The machine is.
There's an interesting point. Kaz says it's called mind control, pattern recognition. Mm-hmm.
The thing is, does it serve a purpose? Or is it another trap?
That's a difficult one.
Isn't it? See, I like to ask questions of questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it is mind control and we're led to perceive that this is a natural phenomenon that we think is genuine, but actually it's not, is that the mind trick? That you think you're making the right decisions. You think you're seeing patterns that aren't truly there because someone's pre-programming them into you. Like me and the number 33, I'm fascinated. Every time I pick up papers, it's always 33 million. 33 people died. Boy, aged 3. And then you check the time it'll be, and the boy was, pronounced dead at 3:30 in the morning. Like, what is it with 33? Every news article's got 3 in some denomination. Or a house value will be 300,000. He got a 300,000 bank loan. Fraud for 300,000. And I'm like, what is it with 3? Every day. 3, 3, 3, 3, 3.
It's funny because I keep seeing 2. Everywhere I look's 2. Going back to Steve Johnson, when I made contact with him, he says, I will warn you before you get involved with me, your synchronicities in your life will go absolutely crazy.
Yep.
And I said, well, yeah, I said, my life's crazy enough as it is, bring it on. He said, no, I mean really crazy. He said, it will freak the hell out of you. And I went, yeah, bring it on, I'm not scared. And there's a time or two since then I thought, ooh, this is getting really weird. You know,
synchronicity is a beautiful thing. I love it. Mm-hmm. It's something to look forward to. It is.
Oh,
it's like that story I think I told you off air quickly. There was a girl there enrolling a son, and she gave over bank credit details, like a bank statement. And she said to her, you keep the originals, their originals, keep them. And the woman's like, okay, I'll blah, blah, blah. And I went, by the way, you shouldn't give them originals, You should keep them yourself. Uh-huh. And I could see this little glint in her eye. And I was like, hello. But anyway, long story short, as we get outside, the first thing she says to me was, so, have you heard about Tom Crawford? And I'm like, hello? We have a live one in Brighton.
Wow.
I'm like, talk about synchronicity. I said, that's funny, because Tom Crawford was on our radio show last night, giving us an up-to-date prologue of what happened. And she's like, wow, it's all about synchronicity. I was like, I don't knock it anymore. I don't knock it. Things are meant to be.
Yeah.
So I directed her here, but I don't think she's introduced herself or whether she's popped in yet. But again, one of these strange things that happen when you just don't even expect them.
Mm-hmm. I've just seen a little bit of information there about Tom from Starfall Jones in the chat box. Any familiar with Tom Crawford's case, they have now received a warrant, but it is magistrates, not High Court.
Be interesting to see.
Yeah, because when they went round to take back the house, the rooftop 6 last week, they were demanding a warrant because they got a High Court order saying that they had to produce the warrant. Yet they carted them all off to the cells and no sign of a warrant.
I think it's important for people to go on YouTube and look into Guy. What's his name?
Guy Taylor.
Guy Taylor. Mm-hmm. His talk, I think it's a 4-parter. And I tell you what, that should open a lot of people's eyes, especially how the courts are all constructed, and they're just rubber stamping things, they're not real. Mm-hmm. Including the councils, yet they can employ their own people to be bailiffs officers or bailiff enforcers, but it's their people, because it's operating as a corporation. Mm-hmm. And Guy Taylor just explains it so clearly to everyone. I would recommend watching it. It's 4-parts, it's well worth 4 hours of your time.
Yeah, well, I can actually give a bit of first-hand knowledge on that. For my sins, before I got off the hamster wheel, when I was fancied a bit of a break away from truck driving, I actually went into work for my local authority, and my job title was a property inspector. I was basically going around checking if there were people living there when they said it was empty, and if it was uninhabitable and exempt, if it was so. And also for business rates, if places were empty, I'll just have a look. There's nobody there, no problem, tick. But I was part of the revenue section, and I shared an office with the council bailiffs. So that's East Lindsey District Council in Lincolnshire, and that's going back right to the start of council tax. They had their own bailiffs then, and they'd been in place since the community charge. So, yeah. I can verify that.
They can wear numerous hats. It would be like, let's just pretend the CEO has a lineup of 5 people, and let's just pretend each one of them at the moment is just an officer, administrative somewhere. She can suddenly point to one guy and say, I'm going to delegate you a special hat. You're going to be an enforcement officer today on behalf of my court staff. And you over there, you can be my clerk. You can be my clerk. You can wear that hat. And then they'll construct a case against you and stamp it. And then they'll return to the seats and take the hat off and go back to the phones. That's how much of a fraud it all is.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but it really does work that way. I'm not the only one who would say that. And I've certainly think I've proved it as well, that it's very much automatic.
Mm-hmm. Well, this thing about liability orders, they're supposed to be issued by the court, aren't they?
But it's the council court.
Well, I've witnessed the council printing them off. So
you might as well just say that the council has a gym inside its premises, and that can become the court.
Yeah,
it's inside its own building.
Yeah,
you know, it's not outside.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to get justice there because you go into their place of business to discuss whatever penalty they decide to give you. Seems you're obliged to pay it now under statute when they say you are now eligible. It's like, well, prove it. Sorry saying I'm eligible, but who are you to write it for me?
Mm.
Yeah, I can be eligible for the vaccine now, can I? Well, it doesn't mean you can enforce that either. But that's what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
I use the vaccine because if it got to that point, why would you argue then? Because you haven't argued the previous times. You were happy to do all the other stuff, but now it's a vaccine and you're being mandated under statute. Why is it different? Accept it.
Yeah.
Isn't that logical to assume that's how you'd think? Why would you resist the vaccine?
Well, for me, I would resist the vaccine because it appears they do you a hell of a lot of no good.
But again, it's the councils making you eligible. Now, whether they can force that eligibility onto you and say, well, I don't care whether you pay it on time or not. If you don't pay us, we've still made you eligible for it. Yeah. You know, it's like someone just making a quasi-agreement saying, by the way, you need to give me 10p every week. You've just been eligible because you're white. It looks like you're a Christian. You're in good health and you got a job. That's your qualifying criteria. So you're eligible. You've met the conditionality. Have a law.
That's an interesting idea. If we could get everybody who's listening to People's Internet Radio 10p a week in, we'd be laughing. Wouldn't need to worry about a donate button, would we?
I had a crazy theory once. Me and my girlfriend were talking about how would you actually make people self-sustaining in using a monetary system, but not paying tax in the way that we currently do. In other words, say just for example, you've got a phone book, alphabetically A to Z.
Yeah.
And there's 60 million people in England, apparently, according to the census. 60 million people. If you took 60 million pennies from everyone's so-called trust bank account, which was held under, the public, under proper trusteeship, and everyone shipped 1p into a huge fund all at once, not interest bearing, it's just moving equity, moving, a massive one thing somewhere. 60 million pennies go into those coffers, and that gets equally divided amongst X amounts of people. But it's done every week. And it's allocated through an alphabetical system or a random system, however you want to do it. But people pay into a 1p. 1p?
Yeah.
Just imagine how many people you could uniformly bring out of poverty by allocating certain amount of set funds, again, into a trust that's managed properly, so people can access it to do what the hell they want to do. So the public truly financially fund it without state or religions getting involved. It's just a mechanism to transfer slush into equitable stuff that you can disperse. And over time, no one will be in debt. 1p. Now, if you magnified that and said, okay, let's go with 10p. I'm going to put 10 pennies into that slush fund, and 60 million people do the same. How much is that?
Off the top of my head, about £600,000.
So if you want to distribute that equally amongst your people, to set up a very working trust fund where they have an inheritance that passes through generationally, right way down the line, that's 10p. Well, let's put up to £1. Can you afford £1 every week? Can you afford £2 to put into that fund for your people?
Yeah.
To let them do what the hell they want to do without any impingement on going to banks and going to states and saying, can we borrow some of our own creation, please? That's where my ideas are, is doing something that, it's still using the monetary system, but it's a tax. Is everyone okay with that kind of tax?
Yeah.
And that funds schools and all the other projects that people can choose where they allocate that percentage of their working wage.
Yeah.
Bring MPE into it. I mean, you got a sweet system. Because again, the people will retain the value of properties. It'll just be sold for 100,000. There won't be any interest bearing on it. people can be able to get access to that kind of fund and not kill themselves doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and it will be passed to generations. So if there's a shortfall, the next generation, they've got a tiny amount to pay, and they've got a nest forever. So I'm just a dreamer, I suppose.
But you're not the only one.
How much do you give to a busker? You know, that's effectively what you're doing, giving a busker's worth to a fund, a global, a national fund, whatever you want to call it. And there's a mechanism of equilibrium, sharing that and letting it all trickle into where it's supposed to and expunge debt from the current system that we have. There is no other way unless you reverse where the taxation comes from and where it goes. Because that channel's polluted.
Well, quite clearly, the money that the government is collecting is not going anywhere where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
It goes in the pockets of those who don't need it, and the people who do need it are the ones who get screwed even more. So it's just making the situation worse rather than better. And people say, oh, well, we're in a recession and this and that and the other. And, oh, well, Cameron's reduced the deficit. My arse, he has. He's massively increased the deficit. But while we have got the mainstream media is what the majority of people listen to, they're never going to have any real idea what's going on in the world because they're just fed this tirade of lies telling them this is how the world is. Well, then when you start to look for yourself, it's nothing like it, is it?
Well, as Ken Pearson rightly says there, you have to take the Crown Corporation of the City of London, capitalised, out of the equation, and Vatican, Switzerland. Well, again, we've got three epicentres of control. You've got Washington, D.C., you've got, obviously, England, London, and you've got Vatican City. And all three of them have a column in front of them, an Egyptian column. That should tell you exactly how old this stuff is and where it's all linking to. You don't put their symbols there to just amuse people. There's only three places that the needles are placed, and they happen to be the three epicentres of power.
Yeah.
So, you know, on the occult level, it's good to understand where the control triangle is.
Yeah.
The unholy trinity, as we call it. But it's all banking and belief and faith. If one day people woke up and said, do you know what, the system isn't working for me, I know what I'll do. We'll set up a trust, and I'll create a penny every week to go into that fund, because we are the credit, aren't we? You know, if we choose to set up a fund which we have a system where I can create a penny, because the work I do will generate credit, there's your fund.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, banks sadly are the middlemen, and do we really need the middlemen anymore? Because it's not a trusting relationship, is it?
Well, need them. I mean, how long have we not needed them? Because they're skinning us. They're just destroying normal people's lives by their greed. And it's not something that's happened in the last few years. It's not something that happened since the Tories got elected or re-elected. It's something that's been going on for centuries, millennia.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Millennia, yeah. I mean, I had this weird thing once, you know, you sit there in silence and people call, you know, tapping into whatever. But I remember a little flash coming into my head. And it said, have you ever considered that money and the way they do things and conquer you financially is actually a weapon of war that they do to most planets that happen to have civilizations on them like us? We are literally sheep, and then a wolf lands and says, "Ooh, look what we got here, a world full of sheep," and it's predatory. And the first thing it does is conquer you financially as a tactic of war.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say where that thing came from, but it popped up somewhere, and it's got a very old history. My question is that what it does? This fictitious monetary system, it conquers you that way and makes you believe in it, and throw a religion inside it. Encapsulate it with a religion and say, well, this is how it works. You got to give money to the church, the gods.
Yes.
Because they've given the knowledge of this stuff, and this has been here immemorial, hasn't it? You said third millennium. Well, we still got it. So what did they bring? Because we didn't have this at one point. This hasn't always been here. But if you track back all like through the Sumerian stuff, and you have certain kings, what they always do is they always change the laws and they forgive all the debts. Every time. It gets so tyrannical, the poor are crushed by the wealthy and the rich, and the landowners and the land grabbers, and the lawyers and the court systems, they all end up so absolutely corrupt that a new king has to come in and expunge the lot. I mean, literally change everything because it's so bad. And I keep saying to myself, are we going to go through exactly the same thing in a future loop? But it's going to be modern to us. We're having exactly the same thing. We need a massive debt jubilee because all of this is completely unpayable. Mm-hmm. It's theoretically impossible ever to pay it off.
Yeah.
So you have to have a debt expungement from the system. Now, my big question is how is that going to be expunged in the metaphysical sense? Mm-hmm. Is that a flood? Is that a flood?
Yes. So,
do you know where I'm going with that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where's the flood going to go?
I mean, we had the flood in, what was it, about 12,000 BC, wasn't it? When the polar ice caps melted very suddenly, which I believe Mr. Hancock is saying in his new book, The Magicians of the Gods, was due to 8 large chunks of some heavenly body falling to Earth.
Yeah.
But what makes sense to me is that destroyed, all but destroyed, whatever civilization was here. There were a few remnants left over. And you look at all the myths and legends throughout the world, and you've got very similar stories in every part of the world that date back way before these ancient civilizations were ever allegedly connected.
Yeah.
And they're all telling the same story. You know, the Viracochas and the Quetzalcoatl, and you've got these strangers with beards appearing all over the world, building pyramids.
Yeah.
I get the feeling we're at the verge of unearthing or discovering some of the ancient knowledge of those civilizations. I don't quite know how we're going to do it, but I get the feeling we're right teetering on the brink of that.
Again, I would ask this question: what are we returning back to exactly? Does anyone understand that it wasn't as gooey and cuddly as everyone thinks it was? I mean, we're dealing with a control system right from the beginning. Now, if we're returning to the beginning, look at what that was. It was complete control. It was what we call autocracy. So going back to the golden age, it's not a good place to be. Look, the research I've done, the golden age was complete enslavement by an autocratic king that subdued everything. So that's not really for me, to be honest.
No.
But the other thing I find fascinating is when I done a little research thing, it's on one of my sites, and I quoted Velikovsky because he says something really interesting in Forbidden Knowledge. Douglas Kenyon, he done all the Atlantis Rising magazines.
Oh yeah.
And the whole book was basically a compressed version of some of these articles. But what he says here is, as a psychoanalyst, Velikovsky was well qualified to recognize pathology in human behavior. In later book, Mankind in Amnesia, he claims the ancient sages, the 7 of them that Hancock talks about, exhibited frightening states of mind, haunted by a particular fear based on terrible events their ancestors had experienced when the world was ripped apart by monstrous natural forces, or I would maybe speculate, a comet. He describes the means by which this deepest of collective traumas was gradually buried and forgotten over the years, but not eliminated. Velikovsky understood our tendency to suppress trauma, but also to express and repeat trauma in peculiar ways. For example, the early wars of conquest were deliberately conducted as a ritual exercise to reenact the havoc and destruction brought by the planetary gods of old. In today's world, we barely recognize our own violence and certainly don't associate it with the ancient roots. That's the nature of buried trauma. One doesn't see one's own shadow. Now, I think that was probably the most powerful thing I ever read. It explains everything. You know, you get a big cometary body, it destroys shitloads of things, and you flip into survival mode and you break. You have that thing, what's called the Thanatos complex. You have 1,000 splinters of mind because your reality's just been shattered. You're going to have to find something that saves you to pull you through it. So you get your ego that says, come with me, I'll get you through it. You believe in yourself, or your ego that you've created because you're broken. So you have to create an alter ego. That's the first break. That's the first persona that you get. Follow me. I'll get you through it. Trust me. It's your conscience, whatever you want to call it. Something is created at that point. And I think Velikovsky kind of gets that connection with trauma. And we've never seen this, but we've read about it, and it sounds traumatic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Does it affect your mind? I mean, can it literally wipe your memory clean? So all of your sages and your wise ones, because they haven't written anything down on stone, maybe they learned that after. But all the other stuff, if it's only transferable through oral transitions, and you get wiped out through a magnetic storm that, maybe a big cometary body might bring, and you end up, wiped like a tape. All your system, all your wisdom's gone. Where do you start from at that point? Is there anyone that remembers? Is there anyone that didn't get wiped on that face of the earth when it went past, bringing lightning bolts and other things, disruptions? I mean, is that really going to give you amnesia? Because I think it does. And are we reenacting it? Is this what we're all going towards with this mind control religion shit? That the Lord of Light's going to return? I just keep thinking it's a comet. They're all expecting a comet to reoccur because they've all been planning it. They know what it is. And the Lord returned with his angels. Well, that could be a comet and thousands of little bodies around it. Hundreds of millions of angels. Well, that's cometary debris. And the Lord's going to come in and start throwing lightning everywhere. Yeah, that makes sense. Is he going to throw some earthquakes our way? Probably. Is he going to make us bow down? Absolutely, if it's bad. But it makes sense. Is he going to bring diseases and plagues? Possibly. We do have a problem of being harbingers of plagues and diseases. So are they trying to foment some natural plagues for us to enjoy, to reenact this whole trauma-based ritual again? Because they're expecting this to arrive. I think, personally.
Yeah, I've seen things that are pointing towards that as being something that's going to happen in the near future. Although Ken has got an interesting idea there. He suggests that we no longer need fear comets these days because we've still got Bruce Willis. And you can get a fridge from Comet. I
used to like Zanussi, showing you the planet Saturn. I like that one.
Oh, yes, from the planet Zanussi, yes.
Yeah. And Whirlpool as the vortex. I like that one too. It does make you wonder why they choose these strange little logos and sigils.
The one that interests me is all the space agencies throughout the world have all got this same vector symbol, haven't they?
Yeah, I've looked into that myself. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but very interesting stuff there. I think he's onto it, yeah. He's definitely got something there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why put it there?
Well, that's it. Yeah, everything's done for a reason. And we're not always party to what that reason is. But when you start looking deep enough and hard enough, sometimes you get kind of epiphanies.
Yeah. Some of them aren't very good, though. These are some of the visions you get now and again.
Well, we can all go down blind alleys sometimes. It's very easily done. But to me, that's not always such a tragedy, because if you're driving a car and you drive down a blind alley, what do? You just reverse out carefully. No damage done. Yeah. You don't drive at the end of the blind alley and just keep ramming it, hoping you're going to get through, do you?
It's no different than just expecting a really bad storm and the weather forecaster says tomorrow is going to be really cloudy. The next day it might be a bit rainy, and the following day it might be a hurricane. My analogy will be the same as all of this could be possible, but isn't it good to know about it? Because the media ain't touching it. They're just filling you with ISIS, the French Revolution, or whatever going on in France. How many people ISIS kill every day, which is something I don't particularly want to read. And how many people are getting attracted to Borg technology to the point where they're completely lost to it. Yeah. I believe Finnish kids now, they've got rid of handwriting because they're just teaching them how to use a computer and keyboard skills. So handwriting is being phased out. They don't need hands anymore. No more signatures or natural writing, because the computers can do it all. So they're getting directly connected to the Borg.
Yeah.
I like to return to the analog. And I think that's why I say to people, go and watch the movie Battleship, the science fiction one. If you look at that through the right eyes, the whole film is about analog versus digital. Because the entire grid has been digitized, it's all controlled by artificial intelligence. They have to go back and use analog, using an old grid system that they didn't know existed, using a buoy system. And they can triangulate and find out where the artificial thing is. So they go back to analog to defeat this invader. And I'm like, that's the point. We need to return a little bit back to analog.
Yeah.
ditch the technology a little bit more, go back to nature, go back to analog, because we're being digitised too much. It's imbalanced.
Yeah. Lee, I've just realised we're coming to the end of the show, so have you got any links you want to give out?
The only one I would suggest people go and have a look is slideshare.net/uniquely, and there's just some PowerPoint presentations of stuff that I'm interested in and I've postulated on and presented as possibilities. So quite a few subjects too.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Lee. It's been an absolutely fascinating chat. Stay tuned for Martin Farrell and Unique Lee. And we'll bid you good night, and we'll catch you on... No, we won't be on Tuesday because it's backed out. We'll see you next Friday. Thanks, Lee, and thanks, everyone. Good night.